Good evening and welcome to Newsmaker Live with me, Kendall Burton. Tonight we'll be discussing some of the hot topics making the news this week, including politics and the police. And my guest tonight is a man who is no stranger to local politics, having served in several executive positions in the United Workers' Party, or UWP, and was recently appointed as the regional coordinator for the Caribbean and Latin America for the organization Uniori, which not only monitors elections in the Caribbean and Latin American region, but also encourages best practices. Mr. Michael Flood, welcome to Newsmaker Live.
Thank you and good night.
Right. As we stated in the introduction, you're no stranger to local politics, so we're going to jump right in to politics. Alan Shastney is in, Stephenson King is out as the leader of the United Workers' Party, or UWP, which you were once a chairman of. What difference do you think this change in leadership makes for the party?
Of course, I think I can see that everybody is unique to their own style. As to what change it will bring to the party, I have worked with Stephenson King for a number of years. Of course, I have known Alan for quite a number of years. I've worked with him during the last 5 years of the UWP government. And I believe, like I've always said, both of them are capable of leading the party, but they have different styles. And I think I can say that based on what I know of Alan, I think he can do a good job, or he will do a good job.
Okay. Richard Frederick has said publicly that he does not support Alan Shastney as the leader of the United Workers' Party, and he has made it clear that he will have to examine his options, and others in the party have expressed similar sentiments. Privately, they've said they're not happy with the selection of Alan Shastney as the leader of the United Workers' Party. Obviously, there's a split in the party. Can it be healed?
I do not consider that to be a split in the party. I think it is a difference of opinion. Richard is entitled to his own opinion, whilst others are. I am entitled to mine. I honestly believe that the United Workers' Party have traversed through a lot more rough waters than this. Right. I could recall when Dr. Vaughan Lewis came in at the expense of Romanus Lansico. Of course, there appeared to be some upheaval in the party. We weathered the tide and we moved on. Of course, one could remember the famous comeback of Sir John, again at the expense of Vaughan Lewis in Sofre. Some people consider that to be a takeover. The party healed and moved on. And I could tell you, based on my observation now, I think the healing process has commenced. Of course, there are some people that are still hurt and will continue to be hurt, but I believe it is something that we will get out of.
But do you really think that the healing has taken place? I mean, if we go back to 1997, a lot of the political analysts looking back at that election cited a number of reasons for the thrashing that the UWP suffered at the polls. The declining economic situation, accusations of corruption. But the main reason offered up by them for the defeat at the polls was the lack of organization. And it seems that is a recurring theme with the UWP.
Again, I will say that the organizational structure of the party is there. But again, having served on the last executive, of course, there was what we call a lot of difference in opinion, the way some people went about doing things. And I believe, of course, for the party to move forward, we need to focus on the party's constitution at all times. Of course, there was a time where I believe some people deliberately moved away from the party's constitution. But again, I believe the healing process, since the inception of Alan as leader, the healing process has commenced, because I believe certain calls have been made to certain individuals. And of course it will take time, but I honestly believe before too long the healing process would have sufficiently taken place to allow the party to move forward and focus on the next general election.
Okay, but even at your your last convention at which Mr. Chasney was elected to the leadership of the party, your guest speaker, Mr. Preville, drew your attention to a number of things that needed to happen within the party in order to ensure the survival of the United Workers' Party and to increase or improve its chances at the next elections due in 2016. Did you really need for Claudius Preville to come in to tell you these things? Wouldn't it have occurred to you, especially with people with your experience and knowledge within the party, shouldn't you have known these things and been working on them all along?
Of course, most of us in the party are aware of it. But again, there is a party structure. There is an executive. And if, of course, I'm sure you could recall, after the last elections, we had the chairman of the party resigning, the first deputy chairman resigning, the party general secretary resigning. Of course, for you to implement the party's constitution, there must be a proper structure in place. And I believe we waited too long for this convention. I believe now, with the convention having been, over with, there is an executive in place. It is left for us as members of the party, committed members of the party, whether in or out of the party's executive, of course, to work and to ensure that the party is so strong that come the next general elections, we will emerge as the party of
Let's
choice.
focus a little bit on the executive. There are critics of Mr. Chasney who say that the UWP executive is made up basically of a pack of losers, and that's their words, not ours, not necessarily ours. For instance, they say Ezekiel Joseph, Leonard Montoute, and even Mr. Chasney himself have failed to impress the electorate at the last elections. He made a bid for Soufriere, didn't make it. How do you respond to that criticism of Mr. Chasney and the executive that he surrounded himself with?
I'm sure one would expect that those criticisms would come from the opposing party. And I think one would be stupid enough to allow the criticism of the opposing party to dictate to you, what to do and how to do it in your party. I believe Mr. Chasney is young, Spider Montoute is young, Ezekiel is young in the politics. Spider came into the party in 2001, whilst Ezekiel came in 2006. Okay, Alan, of course, came in just about 2006 also. And I believe if they use their experience during our 5-year term in government, if they use their experience and more or less bring it to the party structure, I believe a lot could be derived from that. I have always tried my best not to get too involved in the opposing for opposing sake.
Right.
But I will not allow what the opposing party, which is the Central Labour Party, their utterances to dictate to me, how I should work with my party or who I should be, who I should elect to my party's executive. I believe, in as much as leading up to convention, I believe there were some operatives who went a little overboard, but the executive haven't been elected. Okay, it is our responsibility to ensure that we give them the necessary support to ensure that they do what is right and not what the opposing party make us believe.
But do you think those sentiments are held purely by the opposing party, and that there aren't some within the United Workers' Party who are disenchanted and unhappy with the way things are?
I think I can say yes, because again, one must understand Stevenson King had his supporters, whilst Alan had his supporters, and other members of the executive had, or nominees had the support based from other people. I was nominated. Of course, I chose not to go about, in fact, all over the country asking people to vote for me, because I believe to me, I saw it as a friendly thing. Whilst others, went campaigning through the 17 constituencies seeking delegate support, I chose not to do that. The supporters of some of the individuals that did not make it to the executive, of course, they will be hurt. But as true soldiers of an organization, that hurt will quickly come to pass. And of course, we all shall work together to ensure we come to.
You hope.
Yeah, I know it will happen. I know it will happen.
Earlier this evening, in the newscast, you have heard Guy Joseph hinting that the possibility exists that Stephenson King could return as the leader of the United Workers' Party before the next election? Your thoughts?
Of course, based on the party's constitution, which makes it mandatory that there is a convention every year. Okay? All positions becomes null and void at convention. Okay? But I believe in continuity in a party. I do not believe your political leader is something you should go about changing every year, every 2 years, or every 5 years. I am of the firm belief that you need to give your political leader sufficient time to prepare himself and prepare the party for governance. And the notion of Stephenson King re-emerging as political leader next year, yes, it can happen. But as to whether it should happen, this is, of course, up for discussion.
Now, your convention should be an annual one.
Yes, convention
but
is.
It hasn't been. That has not been the case.
No, it has not been the case, and I think I responded to a question like that some time ago, where, of course, when you in government, especially leading up to a general elections, your party would need, time to prepare, and this is the problem that we were faced with. And of course, after the elections, upon the resignation of the chairman, the deputy chairman, and the secretary, the people who were supposed to have put the mechanisms in place to lead us into convention, they were not present. This is why we had to go and form a management committee to prepare the party for convention.
Okay, and here you are now, almost 2 years into another administration, and you're electing a new political leader for the party. Do you think that leaves Mr. Shastney and the United Workers' Party with sufficient time to get their house in order to deal with the issues that are affecting the party and to establish himself like you said he needs to?
I think, honestly speaking, I think the convention came a little too late, but since we could not have done otherwise, I think 3 years plus is sufficient time for anybody to prepare themselves. Of course, Stephenson King was Prime Minister, became Prime Minister after the passing of Sir John. And I must say, he was not leader of the party then. It was after he became Prime Minister, he was elected leader of the party. And I believe he did a fantastic job as Prime Minister and leader of the party.
And you think he should have been given his own mandate?
Yes, I believe he should have been given his own mandate, and I believe if Stephenson King was given the chance, he would have performed probably even better than he did during his 4 years as political leader, Prime Minister of the United Workers' Party. But again, we have gone past that stage. We cannot say if. We have moved to another leader. I think it is our responsibility now to work with whoever is the leader. Once a person has been elected, whether I support or not, the person is elected leader of the party. It is my and our responsibility to work with that person to ensure that person do the necessary to get us back into government.
Okay. Now, if you were to pinpoint Mr. Shastney's qualifications to lead not only the United Workers' Party but to become Prime Minister, what would you say?
Qualifications do not make you a good Prime Minister. Of course, I'm sure you could recall after Stephenson King became Prime Minister, he was chided for not having a proper secondary education. Stephenson King made it clear that I think he finished at the seven-day academic, and the records here will prove that under the worst economic times that we've been, not in St. Lucia but around the world, Stephenson King was able to marshal the troops and deliver to the country. So
when we talk about qualification, we don't necessarily talk about diplomas.
Yeah, I don't think academia should be used as a measuring stick.
Okay, but if you can rephrase the question, does Mr. Shastney have the leadership qualities? Because obviously, leading up to the convention, when it was hinted that he was interested in the leadership position, detractors emerged saying that there were certain qualities that he possessed that disqualified him
You'll always find that. We all have our shortcomings. Yeah. Of course, the detractors will never pinpoint the positives in somebody because of you use the word detractors. Detractor is to detract people. But I believe if Alan is given a chance, and not just a chance, because he has a chance now, but the necessary support. You know, it makes no sense having an executive in place and you do not get the support of that executive. If he gets the full support of that executive, you know, I believe Alan could deliver as a good political leader.
Okay. The SLP, the St. Lucia Labour Party government, has been very dismissive of Mr. Shastney, thinking or stating that they thought they stand a better chance against him, going up against him, than Stevenson King. Let's get your reaction to that.
Again, that's opposing politics. The opposition or the opposing party will never tell you what is best for you. They will always try to make you believe the best is the worst.
Right.
And if we were to, while Stevenson King was there, of course, they were targeting Steve. Okay, now that Alan is there, they will do everything to make St. Lucians believe that Alan is not a good person to lead the party, knowing full well convention is coming. Now, by, you know, perception is key. And if it is perceived by the party supporters that Alan will not lead us into government, next convention they will change him, you know, like changing a sock on your foot. Okay. And I believe you use the right word, detractors, and this is what the St. Lucia Party is doing, detracting, trying to detract.
You're watching Newsmaker Live on DBS. Our guest tonight is Mr. Michael Flood. We will take a short break at this point, and when we come back, we'll shift gears a bit and talk about the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. We'll be right back.